Hello, Andrew. How are you?
I am good. I'm great. Tired.
Yep, I
I'm
get
here.
that. That's awesome. Well, I am so excited because you being on the podcast is so random.
Yeah, and I it, it's just so weird and exciting, and I like this has been the highlight leading up to this. It's been like the highlight of my month.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. So before we get into how we met, of course, Andrew, I have a theme song that I wrote.
Ew.
So here we go. I'm going to start the theme song. And with the quote, we create kind humans who speak kindness, show kindness. Be a kind human. Be a kind human. I really did it just for the last part. Be a kind human. That's probably my favorite part.
Oh, it's such a simple statement, and yet it is like this concept that seems to elude even like the nicest of people sometimes. I mean, myself included. I
Yes.
catch myself be like, okay, no. Was that
Yes.
kind or was that you just being
Yes. Just the whole concept of being kind. I just think it's so needed and it's so simple.
yeah.
Just being kind. So I'm going to read the quote that you submitted today, and then we're going to dance.
I've been waiting for it.
And then we're going to come back and talk about the quote. Okay. So, the quote that you submitted was just so fitting. I'm just gonna say it's so fitting. It's so fitting because it is a quote by the Queen herself, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And it says, fight for the things that you care about, but do it in a way that will lead others to join you. I mean, that is so her.
And you
So
just
her.
that goosebumps.
I know. So we're going to dance for 30 seconds because it increases your heart rate and reduces stress. Here we
And
go.
who doesn't like to dance?
Whew.
I mean, how can you not feel good and smile when
Yes.
you're doing that?
Yes. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. That's one of the things that I really miss about the whole COVID is because, me and Dennis, we would go dancing on the weekend.
Yeah.
And so, dancing in the living room is not the same.
No, really not.
Not the same. So yeah. So I feel like the quote, even when I read it, because originally you had submitted another quote.
Right.
And so tell me, I know some of it, but tell me why the change.
So, I mean, the original thing I submitted was something that I came up with in response to Pulse nightclub that happened in 2016, that terrorist attack against queer people of color. And unfortunately, since that time, that feeling of dread and, okay, like I'm still not safe since I identify as a member of the LGBTQ plus community.
Yes.
That feeling has just like continued to be there. So, I mean, that's something near and dear to my heart, and I will always choose love over hate.
Yes.
I will always choose joy over fear, and
Yeah.
I'm going to try to create rather than destroy.
Yes.
Then I came up with that, and then I think it was 2018 at an art fair on the Circle here in Indianapolis. I came across this quote, and I brought it because whoever did it was just so beautiful.
Wow, I did not realize that it was. Wow.
Yeah, so like I circled back like 2-3 times because that's my rule. While I do my own stuff,
yeah,
I have to come back 2 or 3 times. I'm going to make it mine.
Absolutely.
But I came across that, and that just really encompasses everything I was feeling.
Yeah.
Like, because when when Pulse happened, I had the day before Indianapolis had its Pride Festival.
Yeah.
I was out with friends from church.
Yeah.
Then I wake up to that, and then other events in 2016 happened where that feeling of dread came back up, and continuously since then. But like seeing that not only like reaffirmed what I was feeling at one of my most vulnerable points in my adult life.
Yeah.
It also just kind of like spoke to what I do.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, how do I incorporate this into my daily at home, at work, with my family, with my friends, at church, everything.
Yes.
Yeah. So
so it is for me, I'll be honest and say I didn't know a lot about Ruth, but what I did know is that she was classy. She was a trailblazer, and she was a game changer.
Oh yeah.
Those
yeah.
Those are 3 things that I know about her.
It's like if I just have like 1% of the like courage and strength she had, I will be a blessed man.
Yes.
Honestly.
Yes. And so I'm gonna pivot just a little bit. And because this is really the first time that we have talked.
Yeah.
I mean, really.
Yeah, no.
Because,
you're right.
I mean, it's so funny because maybe a couple of weeks ago, one of the news stations did a story on Mass Ave. And so I was interviewed. And then that day we were having like a sidewalk sale.
Mm-hmm.
And, so I'm out there piddling around and you walk up.
Yep. And my beautiful mask.
Yes.
And heat and
yes.
already some purchases underneath my belt.
Yes. And you bought 2 boxes.
I did.
And I was like, well, if that is not the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, to me, it was just so tell me what brought you down to Mass Ave that particular day?
It was really the sidewalk sale because pre-quarantine and shutdown and bulk of this year, Mass Ave is kind of like my downtown.
Yes.
It has places where you can eat and drink and shop. And I had honestly forgotten that I had interested on the Facebook event. But like as the day approached, I'm like, okay, yes, perfect. I have some weekend plans that does not involve me just sitting on the couch or in the backyard trying to save my garden.
Yep.
Because I grew up on a farm, but I don't have the best green thumb, but I'm also not like a plant killer. So
yes, kind of in the middle, middle.
Yeah.
I'm kind of in the middle.
Average in the garden, and that's I'm fine with that.
Yes.
But so I found myself down there and I was like, okay, I'm going to hit up all my favorite places. And I'm also going to try to support as many people because, again, I grew up on a farm, very much a supporter of small businesses.
Yeah.
And, Saturdays, sometimes it's okay. Yeah, I could go and buy stuff over here, but I could pay maybe a little bit more and help have a greater impact over here.
Yeah.
And I mean, like I told you that day, it's like I've walked past Mimosa and Masterpiece I don't even know how many times, you know?
A billion.
Right. Yeah. Because like restaurants and bars and honestly, free parking is like a block north of you.
Yes. Yes.
That's where I always park, and I go all the way down.
Yes.
And then I stop, and I mean, like with any art place, like I'm going to stop and at the very least appreciate the work.
Yes.
And then you came out and we were talking, and you're like, oh, well, I have this mindfulness booklet that you by all means take, and oh, and look what's in these boxes. And it wasn't like, okay, hey, I need the money, so I'm gonna have a side hustle. It's like I'm genuinely connecting with you.
Yes.
And I'm trying my best just to kind of bring a little bit of joy to your day.
Yes.
And like you said, I bought 2 boxes, and
you did.
One's at my office at school, and one is in my bedroom right now.
I love that.
Because it's like, one of them is for me, and one of them I'm going to pay it forward to the kids I work with.
Yes. Yes. And it's so funny because I think, and this is one of the great things that I see at this time, is that I have had sidewalk sales or different kinds of sales that's separate from the painting part of most of the masterpiece. But that was the most that I had sold on a given day, just products.
Yeah. That's
you know what I'm saying? And I mean, it really was. And for me, it was that people were being kind, because it's like, even, downtown is a little different now.
Yeah.
It is. I feel like it's coming back, but it's a little different. And so it was such, I mean, people, my friends came to see me. I mean, it was just it was like almost a reunion. I met new friends, Andrew.
Hello.
Some old friends came past, Anna, Eugene. I mean, it was a lot of people who it was just such a great day.
Yeah.
It was such a great day. So thank you so much for supporting small businesses.
Absolutely.
We really appreciate it.
Yeah. I mean,
we really do.
That's kind of like, it's kind of ingrained in my DNA, really, because, going to farmers markets, selling livestock, showing livestock, like that's just kind of like that part of Americana that people picture when you think, oh, that's Americana.
Yes. Yeah.
And in its purest form.
Yes. It is.
And I mean, this year has challenged a lot of us, included, and members of my family, to be like, okay, how are we sticking to what we know to be true and what we know to be right?
Yes.
And I mean, I love a little retail therapy. I may spend just a little too much that day, but you know what?
No, we all, yes.
But like my posts, because whenever I do, I'm not a big social media person. But like when I do something that's important to me, I post. And like I took a selfie that day, and I was like, the caption was something along the lines of like, may spend a little too much money, but my budget will adjust. Because I'm doing this great. Like he's like, I'm doing something so small.
Yes.
And for me, I'm lucky and blessed to say that.
Yes.
Because I know at a time in my life I wasn't.
Yes.
But for me that day was something just so small, just going to these different places, talking to people, meeting new friends, trying to better my practice and myself in the process.
Yes.
And coming home and just like sharing it. And then it's like the next day I dove into the podcast and instantly fell in love and reached out, and here we are.
I know. I mean, it was just so like, oh my gosh. I mean, it was so organic. You know what I'm saying? And so it was just really, really nice to meet somebody, just another kind human, and just take that and connect at another time. You know what I'm saying? And so thank you for saying yes.
Thank you for asking me, because I mean, a little part of me is always like, okay, if this happens, what would I say? What would I do? And it's like, that's why I picked out my quote already before I even reached out and said, I love the podcast.
Yes.
And then, the more you sit on it and ruminate and think and pray and meditate and whatever word fits your personal practice. I was like, I don't want, like, I need to find something that encapsulates me better than just my own words.
Yes.
While they were beautiful.
Yes. Yes, they were.
Yeah. And I just kept looking at it because I have that hanging up. Like,
I had no idea that that's what that was.
Yeah. Yeah. It was just a piece of art that I got from a local person, and just I've had it hung at my door because I had just moved into this place right before I bought that. And it was like one of the first pieces that I bought, not from Goodwill, on the wall.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I like to salvage art from Goodwill because I know if my stuff ends up there and I see it, I'm gonna be hurt.
I know. So let's talk a little bit about, I see some things back there. What kind of art do you do?
So I really just do whatever's in the moment.
I love that. Love it.
The blue crystal behind me here.
Yep.
That was my first attempt at oil painting.
Oh, wow. That's a huge attempt.
Yeah, it was a bit ambitious. And
it looks nice.
Thank you.
It really does.
And then this piece, let me get over here. This one right here. So when I was in grad school to become a counselor, I kind of hit a few roadblocks in my life. And okay, let's try to practice what I'm trying to preach here.
Yes.
And so I went to my own counseling, and one of the assignments was do something that represents you. And for me, I'm a huge nerd. Like right here is a Pokemon map of
gotta love a good Pokemon.
Right, exactly. It's like that's how I survived. Honestly, like in the negative crap.
Absolutely.
And so is X-Men. And so this is like my attempt to personify my X-Men alter ego.
That is really good.
Thank you.
You know, I just love the creativity of it all. You know, just to start with something blank. You know, it kind of reminds me of a couple of years ago, and then we'll get to the quote, I promise. Sorry. Just, there was a guy that came in, and I could tell he was a little nervous. He had a date. And when he came in, he was like, hey, thank you so much for allowing us to come. And then he looked at the canvas and he said, they're blank. And I was like, yes. He's like, so they're not pre-sketched? I was like, no. And I mean, it was like all the,
buckets.
Yes. I mean, because he's like, oh my gosh, like, it's like, yes, you're going to be a real artist by the time you leave. So I realized that it can be a little intimidating to look at a blank canvas or a blank slate or a blank piece of paper, whatever it might be.
Right.
But, part of the beauty is, thinking about what you want to create, what's beautiful for you, and then doing that. So kudos to you.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay, so let's talk about RBG, as she's been known, RBG. Fight for the things that you care about, but do it in a way that will lead others to join you. What does that mean to you, Andrew?
It really kind of reminds me of that old adage, like you catch more flies with honey than vinegar. And I could easily turn on the TV, turn on news, and see people fighting for what they believe in.
Yes.
Whether I agree with what they believe in or not is irrelevant. I see what they're fighting for. But it's an election year, and election years are notorious for doing it in ways that are like feeding into our fear, feeding into like our base primal fear.
Yes.
And that's what I loved about the previous president's campaigns. It like very little did he endorse that was like attack. It's like I'm presenting facts and I have a vision of hope.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like I think that's really when it started to like all click, like the sugar, vinegar, anything. And then coming across this quote. And I mean, again, the dissent collar, beautifully drawn.
Yeah.
It's like, if you want someone to hear you and understand you, you can't always be blah, 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 blah. It's like, there has to be a conversation. There has to be something that you share and talk about.
Yes.
And there has to be listening, and it's like, I've alluded multiple times, like, I work with kids and stuff. So I provide counseling for teenagers mainly.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
And thank you. Yeah. Like I've been doing like therapy, behavioral health, mental health in the school-based system for about 8 years now.
Wow. So needed.
Yeah. And there at the beginning, I was like, okay, why am I hitting so many walls? Because I was still in grad school, and like, I wasn't doing therapy, but I was doing therapy because any good skills clinician out there can do awesome therapy, and any good therapist can do awesome skills work. I tell all my interns and all the new hires that with the company I work for, and I realized that, like, these kids sometimes like there's some real stuff going on that no one can control.
Right.
Other times, and honestly, majority of the time, like, they just want to be heard, and they want you to show that you care. And like, fighting is like, going back to like, fight for things we believe in. If we believe in kindness, we can't be fighting for kindness in a way that's unkind.
Yes. Yeah. And listening to you, this is something that my son taught me, that the older he gets, the less I talk. And I think even like what you're saying with kids, I have a great niece that I call Ladybug. I'm the only one who can call her Ladybug. She's 18. She just went off to college. But she will always be Ladybug to me. And I ask a lot of questions, and I just listen, because there's a part of me that believes that is what everybody wants. Everybody wants to be listened to and heard.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a great thing that you're doing with the teenagers. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah. Now, don't get me wrong. There are some times where, like, the dad that I was raised with, which is, for better, for worse, like, objectively, I hear my dad and my mother come out of my mouth multiple times. Because, like, what, I'm not kidding. But I mean, even like in that moment, it's like, okay, I lost my cool. And like, I'm driving this point home because we've talked about it 100 times.
Yes.
Everything leading up to that point has been out of, I'm in your corner. I'm trying to help you be the best you that you can be and empower you. And everything afterwards is, okay, I apologize. I lost my cool. I'm human.
Yes.
I'm not going anywhere.
Right.
And so there's a lot of like relearning these behaviors that, I mean, I remember feeling like, okay, I messed up. And there's no way my parents could love me because I messed up so bad.
Yes.
And I mean, they do, and they did, and they still do.
Yes.
And especially now as an adult, it's like, we don't always see eye to eye.
Right.
And I'm a product of both of them. We butt heads.
Yes. Yes.
But at the end of the day, it's love. Like, we come back to love. We come back to trying to understand each other.
Absolutely.
Even if, like, we can't agree on something that, it's okay to disagree on. Like, we still, at the end of it, we still come back to hearing each other and knowing who the other person is.
Absolutely. I wish I could remember the name of this. I want to say maybe it was a series. Dennis was watching, and it was about a coach who had gone to this neighborhood. They'd never won a football game. And for 6 years, he was in there talking and encouraging and coaching. And, you know, I've never played any kind of organized sports. So whatever coaches do to football players, that's what he was doing. He was,
Closest I got was to running track.
yeah. Oh, yes. There you go. Yes. And so this quote makes me think about it because, you know, there comes a point where there was this young kid and he really wanted to play football, but his test scores were not up to par.
Yeah.
But he got hurt. He was studying. And then, you know, he was well enough to play. It was the last game. And his scores were good. But none of the colleges wanted to accept him because of his academics.
Yeah.
And so then, you know, somebody heard about his story and paid for him to go to college. And so it was just, and after all of that, you know, he was getting ready to go off to college and the coach just hugged him and hugged him and hugged him. And later on, they interviewed him and he said he wanted to be a coach. You know what I'm saying? To instill in other young athletes what his coach had instilled. And I was like, that's being a leader right there.
Yeah.
That is. Because you could certainly see all of the trials and tribulations that he had to go get them. You know, they get mad and, you know, it was just, he'd have to take them to the doctor or pick them up. I mean, it was a lot that he had to endure. But to see the end results of that, it was just beautiful. I mean, it was so beautiful. Yeah. I mean, I think that is how you lead.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
In college, I went on an intern mission trip to Haiti for 8 weeks.
And one thing I want to do so bad.
I will say I've not been on a whole lot of mission trips, but I've not heard of or been on one that didn't. There was always like some that always seemed like just go wrong.
Yes.
Like luggage got stolen. You stepped
right.
on the you know, but in the pre-field training for it, because it was through a Christian organization. And in that orientation, we talked about like what it means to be a leader. And especially as a privileged American going into places like Uganda and Haiti and, you know, the South Sudan and Burma.
Wow.
And it was like, you know, pulling from the Bible, you know, the reason why that Jesus used shepherds as an example was because shepherds lead by example out front.
Wow, I did not realize that. Okay.
And then you have a shepherd on the side to keep you know, encouraging, and then you have one in the back who is pushing the flock forward. Which, I mean, I grew up raising goats.
Yes.
Goats and sheep are opposites, you know?
They're two different things.
Right. Yeah.
Tell me something that I didn't know about goats.
I mean, there's so many things I could think of, but the most popular milk in the world is goat's milk.
I love goat. I just started eating goat cheese.
Yeah, I love goat cheese.
It's my new favorite thing.
My mom makes goat cheese she did in years past. Every summer she would make it from our dairy goats and stuff. But goats, you can kind of train, like dogs a little bit. Not necessarily like to sit or stay, but like to come when you call them.
Got it.
And they kind of take on your personality. Whereas like sheep, they're like, I mean, it's a herd mentality because that's survival. So like that leading by example, leading by encouragement, and then leading in step with them.
Yes.
And that has stuck with me since hearing that. And I mean, because up until that point, I had never heard of that either.
Yeah. I mean, it really makes the analogy of it. Yeah. It's very interesting. It's very interesting. You know, I know that a lot of employees really look to leadership, especially during times like this, and, you know, racial unrest and, you know, mask and everything. And so it's, for me, I think that these are the times where true leadership shows.
Absolutely.
I want to read something to you that I because of course everybody's been posting about RBG. But it says, women, if you have a credit card in your own name and your own credit history, if you have leased an apartment or brought property in your name, if you have consented to your own medical treatment, if you have played a sport in school, you can thank Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I was like, okay, Ruth.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Right. It's like, of course, like you grow up and you go through government, about the justices and stuff. And I took a women in the law class in college because I had to. I had to take elective, and that was one.
Yes.
So, I knew of Ruth.
Yes.
But it wasn't until finding this quote that I like dove into more of like her rulings and stuff. And I didn't even know half that stuff until, after she died and people were posting in memoriams to her. I was like,
yes.
Okay. I was like, that is one person that you like would not expect to like be intimidated by, just because she reminds me of my grandma.
I know, she's like this big. She's tiny.
Yeah. And I mean, just to think about like everything that she had to overcome to get
my goodness.
Yeah. Power to be that leader.
Yes.
For women, for queer people, for anybody who does not fit into this stereotypical cis white male politician in power.
Yes.
And it's like, there's so much that like I know that people
it's all good. Just let it go.
It's like feelings are okay, tears are okay.
Yes.
In my journey growing up in rural Indiana on a farm in a religious household, and then coming to terms with the fact that I'm not straight, and then like trying to figure out what that means and how that ties in with my faith. There was a huge part of me that was like, oh my gosh, there's like this whole other culture and history that I get to learn about. I'm like, oh, this is awesome.
Yes.
And so like when I see posts like that, like what Ruth did and what other people who have been gone long before either of us have existed, like their legacy and learning about that, it's something so connecting and powerful. And all you can do is just like have like this swell up of tears of happiness,
Yes.
So like I'm glad that I'm learning more about what she did for everyone.
Absolutely. And I mean, for me, it really causes me to think about, okay, Tawana, how are you showing up in the world? I mean, really, when I think of people like her and Chadwick and just a lot of people who, really affected people.
Yeah.
Really made a huge impact while they were here. That to me is what living is about.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, I might want some sweet potatoes for dinner, but in the reality of things, like, how am I making the life of somebody else better? That's, you know what I'm saying? Like, what is my contribution to the world?
Yeah.
And to see her really lead the way that she led and affected change, it's just so inspiring.
Oh, yeah.
It really, really is. It's very inspiring.
Yeah. And like you bring up Chadwick and we're talking about Ruth, and they did things like they were doing things that they felt led to do. Like they were doing things that they were called to do, that they enjoyed doing. And kind of like piggybacking off what you just said, like what we do as individuals doesn't have to be at the level of Ruth or Chadwick or, Barack and Michelle.
Yeah.
It can literally just be stopping and admiring paintings on a side.
Yes. Yes. Or a therapist or starting a podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, it can be.
It can be like, and it's something that like pulls us out of our comfort zones all the time. Yeah. But it's something that when we open ourselves up to those opportunities, it pours back into us. So that we can
absolutely.
Pour out,
Yes. Yes. The last few, so probably in 2018, not 2008, 2018. I decided that I was going to put myself out there more with Mimosa and a Masterpiece, because for 6 years, there was no picture of me on the website at all.
Yeah.
And so as I started to make those steps to move further and further out of my comfort zone, it was really uncomfortable, but it was also just what I needed. And so I also am not one that does a lot of posting on social media, even though, I think about it all the time. I do. It's like, you should be posting more, Tawan. But I'm like I'm in the pre-post era.
Yeah.
But I also realize that because that's the thing that makes me feel uncomfortable, that's just the thing that I need to do.
Yeah.
Which is one of the reasons why this podcast came into being, is because being comfortable is boring.
It's nice for like a little bit.
It is.
Because we all need that moment of just like, okay, I'm comfortable. I'm recharged.
Yes.
Unplug from the wall.
Yes.
Get out and do.
Yes.
Absolutely.
But I have found that I have learned more about myself when I have been courageous.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the reasons why 2020 has been, for me, such a great year.
Yeah.
Is because, yes, I am totally aware. I am totally aware of the fires, the pandemic. I'm racial. I totally get that. And, it's also about just being uncomfortable and what that's going to look like.
Yeah. I mean, I started adopting this mindset about halfway through the shelter at home order. So June, July, when I started to actually start seeing my kids face to face. While they're not my kids, they're my kids.
I get that, but they are, yes.
Yeah. Like, I'm able to meet with them in like their yards or walk around their neighborhoods and stuff. And I mean, all this stuff that I've been seeing on the news, that I've been hearing with the virus, with the racial uprisings across the country, that I'm so glad is happening, and saddened at the same time that it has to happen.
Yeah.
Like, I go and I talk to these young, people of color, these young Black boys and girls, men and women, and like, where I'm sitting at is like, yeah, I'm not happy with how this year's turned out. I don't think anybody is.
Right.
I mean, if you are, call me so I can try to help fix up what's going on.
Give me the secret sauce.
Right. Yeah. Yes. That too.
Yes.
But it's like, I started adopting this, started shifting from the negative to, okay, what does this present? And what's really like, the only thing that came to mind was like all the innovations that are happening, all the advancements in how we stay connected with people.
Yes.
And I'm trying not to go down the whole sci-fi movie conspiracy theory with this.
Yes.
But I mean, it's so exciting. And there's things that are happening that I know that I don't have the capacity to understand.
Yeah.
And that's going to not only better my life or the lives of my kids, but my niece and goddaughter, who is in first grade.
You have ladybugs too?
I do. She is my sweet pea. That was like, and I don't call her that a lot because I'm not around her a lot, but you know, when I babysat her when she was like 2 months old and to the good Lord above for only wet diapers, and he blessed me with that.
You lucked out.
Oh, I mean, it was, it wasn't a long time, but it was just enough. But like, you know, and it was like, okay, you are someone who's very special to me, and you are near and dear to my heart. And I know I'm not your parent, and I will never be your parent. I know I love you as if you are mine.
Yes.
And so I'm like, you're my sweet little bee. So she's my little honeybee.
I love that.
But
I love that.
And I mean, just like the things that are going to change and make struggles that we've both gone through easier for her.
Yes.
And again, I'm not even looking at the other side of the coin here. I'm staying, like I started looking that and having that conversation with the kids really I started to see a shift. You know, it's like, okay, yes, I can accept that things are bad right now. I can accept that things have kind of been bad for a long time. I can also accept that there is hope and there's light and there's a path forward. And I know I can get some semblance of what I consider to be normal back.
Yes.
Because I think that's all we're really wanting.
Yes.
Is just a semblance of what we had before this virus broke out and spread rapidly across the world.
Yes.
And
that part.
Yeah, because I mean, we're never going back to the way things were.
I don't think so. Either.
I mean, there's no way to.
I don't think so either. I really don't.
Yeah, it's like because we found that we have the capability to survive it.
Yes.
Yeah, we have to be uncomfortable for an extended period of time.
Yes.
But we can survive it and we can find a way through it with little to no leadership or all the leadership in the world.
Yes.
Because, I mean, if you look at the global perspective, everyone has had this experience.
Yes.
It's like a unifying thing.
It is.
And now that we have these technologies and innovations to share and connect and create a better world moving forward.
Yes.
It's going to be people like your ladybug and my honeybee who are going to change.
Yes.
Who are going to make those changes.
It is.
And I will be there withered, gray, in a wheelchair, rooting them on.
I know. But you know what? The other thing I thought about is I also think that even relating back to the quote, like this is a great time for us to rise up as leaders.
Yeah.
You know, and really, you know, I think Gandhi says, be the change that we want to see, because it's very easy to point the finger and blame other people and say, okay, you shoulda, woulda, coulda. Okay. And yes, but what about you?
Yeah. And
so
that reminds me of something I heard Kamala Harris talking about after she accepted the VP nomination. It's like, you know, she would go home and like get all of it out to her mom. And she's like, okay, I hear you. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, that's the question for us all.
Yeah.
What are we going to do?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's it.
I mean, that's the one we have to set with each day and kind of just like in each situation.
Yes.
Practice that introspective mindfulness and just like, okay, this is an issue I see.
Yes.
This is what I want to see happen. What can I do?
Absolutely.
Whether it's fill out your census or go vote or volunteer at the food pantry or, you know, run for office, create your own companies to boost your community.
Yes.
Get involved with an organization, take a leadership position in your church, in your club, step out of that comfort zone and do things the way you wanted. Be that person that you wish you had.
Absolutely. I love it. Yeah. And you know what, that leads us to the very, you know,
I love your coaching hat, by the way.
I mean,
it is fun. It is
I feel
colorful.
like everybody should have a coaching hat, is what I feel like. Everybody doesn't, but,
I mean,
that's how I
we
feel.
can be our own cheerleaders and our own coaches, but sometimes we just have to put on the hat.
Yes. And so my intention is to leave the listeners with something every episode that they might be able to take so that they can be kinder to themselves or to others. And talking about Ruth and the legacy that she has left being a leader, I would like for us to think about ways that we have been following that we can now turn in to leaders. And so is there a project that you could take the reins? Is there a certain ritual? And what I mean by that is like maybe starting gratitude or prayer in your family in some way, doing random acts of kindness. What is it that you can do to lead in the situations that you're in?
Yeah. $1 million question.
I know, right?
Every episode, like I ask myself and I try to enact that week because like I tell my kids and other people I interact with and I give advice to, it's like, I'm giving you stuff that I know that I have to do.
Yes.
And I mean, for me, honestly, like the first thing that popped in my head is like, you know what, maybe just show a little bit more gratitude in the way that I'm comfortable with.
That is big.
Yeah.
Gratitude is really big. It really is.
Yeah. And I mean, there's so many ways to do it. And it doesn't have to be this big, grand gesture.
Absolutely.
And for me, in my daily life, I love to cook and bake. Thank you, Grandma. Thank you, Mom. And so like making cookies. I saw that you posted a thing of chocolate chip cookies.
Yes.
Honestly, I just need to get the ingredients.
I know.
But I don't eat them all. It's like I save like a few back for me, but then I just, like I said multiple times, pay it forward. I give it out to someone else because, again, start small.
Absolutely.
So this much gratitude towards
someone. Yes. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I think it's great. I love it. So there you go, listeners. You can start small. You can just start with gratitude. Yeah. That could be the place where you could start leading.
Yeah.
Andrew, thank you so much. Oh my, this has been such a treat.
I am seriously so honored and so excited to be on here. And I've been telling people that I'm going to be on here.
Yes.
I'm like, and they're like, oh, give us the information. I'm like, oh, you will know because everybody's going to know.
I know, right?
And I cannot wait to see, like, he's like, this connection was completely random, and I am super excited to see like where this takes us. Even if it is just this one moment.
Absolutely. You know? It's just a great example of connection.
Yeah.
Just a great example of that.
And that's all we really need right now.
That's all we need is connection and being kind. Hey, speaking of being kind, I wrote a theme song.
Play it.
The quote: we create kind humans who speak kindness, show kindness. Be a kind human. Be a kind human.